These LNG export projects would impact all Oregonians. We want to also recognize that Oregonians aren't the only people fighting to protect our homes from the fossil fuel industry. Today's action aligns with actions across the U.S. and on the East Coast, where our allies are working to draw attention to unaccountable public agencies like FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, who continue to greenlight fossil fuel projects regardless of the incredible harm to our communities. We stand in solidarity with communities throughout the U.S. impacted by fracking.
Yeah.
Oregon is facing two Alliance President, Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
We know what colonial economies do to a people. They create an oligarchy, what we call a corporate kleptocracy, where there's a few very wealthy thieves and corporations at the top, and the rest of it makes a few people billionaires by impoverishing a few Canadian oilmen, Calgary oilmen billionaires, by impoverishing the people of Oregon. So I'm going to tell you this, that in 30 years, as an environmental advocate, I have recognized a truth, which is wherever you see large-scale environmental destruction like the kind that they're planning in this project, you'll also see the subversion of democracy. You'll see the corruption of public officials. You'll see the capture of the agencies that are supposed to protect the rest of us from pollution. You'll see the destruction of transparency in government. You'll see the subversion of the press in some cases. You will see the destruction of local control and local sovereignty. And you will see the theft of property by large corporate entities who now control the government using political clout to trample our private rights of speech, of assembly, and ultimately to hold private property. And I want to ask you this. At what point in this country did we create the right of eminent domain for private foreign billionaires to take our property away without paying us? Something that's part of the American experience? Isn't that why Europeans came to this country, to get away from that? Europe, where big, powerful people could come and take your property away? Well, that's what's happening here. And, you know, I look at this and say, we have to show that there's a public benefit. But where is the public benefit?
No public benefit.
Well, there's 145 jobs in Coos Bay, and that's a good thing. But it's going to steal jobs from the rest of the state. And the benefit of those permanent jobs is not commensurate with the environmental damage that's going to be suffered by the people of Coos Bay from the destruction of those salmon streams, which is going to happen. We have pipelines all over New York, and guess what? All pipelines leak. That is a law of nature. And when they build them, they're going to destroy that critical habitat, and they're going to damage the environment. But they're also, we know this, they're going to aggravate global warming. This isn't just going to be the biggest power plant, the biggest global warming gas emitter in Oregon. It is going to, if you look at the life cycle of fugitive emissions from extraction and drilling to transportation to production and to liquefaction, degasification, and redistribution, the whole life cycle of that product, they are leaking so much gas that it makes them a much greater emitter of greenhouse gas than coal to go over to China, and we're going to displace coal over in China. Well, there's no guarantee of that. Show us that on paper before you do that.
Yeah.
Because I can guarantee you they are not going to displace coal in China. They're just going to add another greenhouse gas that is worse than coal.
Right.
So, I want to say this, that you ask yourself, I did an editorial a year and a half ago with David Crane, who is the CEO of NRG, which is the biggest energy producer in the United States of America. And David Crane, his company has coal plants, they have gas plants, they have nuke plants. They have oil plants, they have wind, and they have solar. So he's agnostic about what kind of energy he uses. He wants to use the cheapest kind of energy for his shareholders. And what he said in that editorial for the New York Times is that in 30 states in the United States, if he has to spend $100 million on a new power plant, he will put that money into solar.
Yeah.
This was when gas was at a historic low of $2 per thousand cubic feet.
Why isn't he doing it?
So, well, he is doing that. But the gas, and all of the carbon incumbents understand this relationship. And we, the solar and wind energy industry, can now produce electrons and deliver them to the consumer much cheaper than the incumbents, than the carbon cronies, than wind, solar, or new. Than coal, oil, gas, or new. So what do they have to do? The only way that they can hold on to their market is through using political clout to obtain massive subsidies for themselves. And the World Bank or the IMF just announced trillions of dollars that they get in subsidies to the carbon industry every year. And it's socialism. It is a cushy socialism for the rich and a brutal, savage capitalism for the poor. And that's what they want. That's the vision that they have. The only way that they can hold on to their market advantage is through political clout by distorting the marketplace and giving themselves an advantage in the marketplace. So you wonder, why is it that the Koch brothers are putting $900 million into this presidential race? That's just their beginning bid. That's as much as the Democratic Party, and it's as much as the Republican Party. Why? Are they doing that because they love our country? Are they doing that because they're great patriots? No. Are they doing it because they love democracy and they want to see? They're doing it because they know that that's the only way that they can hold on to their profits, if they can own the politicians, if they can use our campaign finance system as a system of legalized bribery to get their hooks into our public officials and make Congress their indentured servants in Washington, D.C., which they've already done.
Yeah.
And then maintain that advantage in the marketplace. And they have changed the laws subtly in ways that most Americans don't even know about, to give themselves that advantage. And their strategy is to make it easy to build infrastructure. They have made it almost impossible in this country to build transmission lines. And yet, they've made it very, very easy to build a pipeline. So in the last 10 years in this country, we have built 16,000 miles of pipeline and only 600 miles of transmission, which is the media that we need, that wind and solar needs to get our product to market. So they made it almost impossible for us to get our product to market because they know we can beat them there. But they made it very easy for them to get their product to market. And what does it do when they build a pipeline? What does it do? It locks us in. It fortifies their market and their business model for the next 20 or 100 years. You know what kind of contracts that they have to get this pipeline financed? They have to have at least 20-year contracts. That means that no matter how cheap solar and wind get over the next 2 decades, somebody is going to have to burn that gas. Somebody's going to have to, legally they have to pay that company money. So they're trying to build these big facilities that are going to be there for the next 100 years. And that are going to lock us in to this antiquated, destructive, terrible business model for 100 years after it's archaic and after any economic rationale has elapsed. And you know what?
Louder!
California has said no. We're not going to do it. Washington has said no. And British Columbia has said no. We're not going to do it. So they see the weak target as Oregon. Are you going to let them do it?
No!
And they've told... Should I repeat that? Okay. They said, California said no. Washington said no. British Columbia said no. And they see the weak link as the state of Oregon. Are you going to let them do this? They're going to buy them, and they're going to try to buy the legislature and the government, because it makes no economic sense. I'll tell you this, about a year ago, representatives from Dow Chemical, it's always been, it's somebody we've been suing for many years, and DuPont came to the waterkeeper lines, and they said, we want to finance your battle against LNG. We said no, but we said we like the way you think. Oh, why do they want to finance us to fight LNG? Because the energy costs are one of the highest costs for their factories. They want to build factories in the United States, and methane is the primary to build those factories in this country that they're paying in Asia. So why is that good?
I guess it's full.